Just
and that's providing that it remains.
We're success.
So, because I was gonna go 12. And then talk to the guys, we decided, okay, so just back it down. Well, just for the sake of them utilizing this public restroom. Not a good thing? I don't think so. No?
That's making.
Deb, was it you telling me that I had to get something other than my bag for my stuff? Probably it's 20 years ago when I said, you got it.
I like that because that's the way that I was.
I disagree with both you guys.
But
Should be a public road.
I see.
We should give them a break because it's a public road.
That's a policy decision that the board should make. Insofar as we're teeing it up for the board, here's the decision by.
Dan Aykroyd was like,
It's treated as a hazard.
The town is taking care of the
one carried the key, the other one had the
the
briefcase.
town,
Rusty's got a TV?
the county takes care of the maintenance.
Rabbit ears.
Because they wanted us to do that, right? One time.
Those are big.
They wanted us to take care of
I
that.
know. I don't like technology, but I like a 60-inch flat screen. Rotary dial phone, 60 inches. No
Priorities, I
cable,
get it.
no cable, little funny little.
Smart TVs. TVs are smart now.
So,
That's, then the way you change.
I don't like when they're smarter than I am. What's that?
Video.
Here's my 8-track tape.
If you'd like to appeal this or.
Ron, how are you?
Classification.
Not bad, Joe, how about you, buddy?
And then the board will say, okay.
I used to hate having to in the middle of a record.
So the time with your cameras over there.
Trying to get George there as much as we can, it's just this time of year is so hard, he ended up wrecking.
I heard you again.
Another one.
My brother's even got a gun. Went to his house and got him a couple times.
Oh, really?
One time he showed up at,
Well, I backed off from it so much now
I
that,
know, but he shows up at 6 and works till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Put it in front of the record.
It's like,
I'll see what I can do to get him down.
yeah, they don't have, he said he only has about 2 hours left in the maintenance. And then they gotta just do their house, and that's all gonna be filled in with chases, so just run the stuff and go. So he's
If I can get him
gotta,
down there tomorrow, because he's gonna be out of town all next week.
okay, cause yeah, he's gotta start, he's gotta. Should we back to Harvard? Yeah. You guys ready for it? Yeah, you said you called him, you were missing him already. You guys ready? Back to Harvard? Yeah. He says he's gonna be doing Ken. All right, everybody rise for the pledge. Most of it's going. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh Lord, as we gather this day to do the important business for the people of the village of Louisville, grant us wisdom, compassion, and understanding. Amen.
Amen. All right, first item is public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? No?
Good, that's what we'd like.
Okay. Next item is state of the new OHPC law. And Ed is late. Can everybody read the law? This is just a discussion amongst the board. Nadine offered to answer any questions between Nadine, Ed, and Nate. If we had any questions going in the next meeting, is the public hearing for the law. I read the law.
And there were a few changes. I actually emailed the mayor just a little bit earlier today with some changes from SHPO.
I was sleeping, so.
That's okay. It mainly focused on the administrative approvals that the process allows to basically remove some things from the administrative approval process. Chico said, well, this type of work, when it relates to some alterations and repair type of things, needs to go through the full board as opposed to an administrative type of review.
Right.
Pretty straightforward.
I guess, I mean, overview, we've got 5 voting members, appointed by me, approved by the board. They are a staggered terms, wait, how many years? Staggered 5-year terms? And then there's 5 non-voting members, right?
Those are, that's up to you how many that you appoint, but we put in 5. That's
Okay.
the way that we felt that sometimes the board or the mayor would like to have a little more input into our discussions, and we were really open to that. So.
And I think it's actually a 3-year term.
It's a 3-year term.
3-year, yeah.
Yeah, we switched from 5 until 3, yeah. Which with the idea of, so there would be a good healthy turnover.
I guess with that turnover, is there any concern, because the voting members, it says there's some criteria. 1 shall be an architect, an engineer, or contractor having experience. 1 shall be a historian, and 1 shall be a state licensed real estate professional. 1 shall be a resident of the historic district. Do we have any concern over getting people to fill those every 3 years?
So there is a catch-all under E, so we're on page 3, it's E6, in the event that the mayor and board determine the subsections, the positions described in subsections 1 through 5 can't be filled by qualified persons, then you can fill them by appointing a person under 4 or 5, and you'll see 5 is basically unknown interest in preservation and planning within the village of Owego.
Okay.
No, that's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
because there needed to be an outcome.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and that's always been a concern of getting good, interested and qualified people. And I think it's good to set the bar. This is the bar that the state sets for, New York City and Syracuse and all.
Yeah.
Set the bar high. Sometimes we make it.
Yeah, I know
you
that.
know. And it's amazing in a small village like ours, the qualifications of people that are ready to serve.
Right.
And we do. So I think it's good to keep the bar high and try to aim for that, for those things.
Well, the qualifications seem freezing, I mean, good,
Yeah,
as long as we can find people that qualify for
we
it.
want to do it.
So one of the reasons that we have or included, I think, ex officio members is to actually hopefully have like a pipeline of people built in.
Train them.
So somebody who's not necessarily, somebody who doesn't have the experience today could say, well, I'd like to become involved perhaps, and they can be appointed as an ex officio member. They don't have any voting capacity. They don't
Right.
make decisions, but they do have access to the applications. They'd be able to sit in on the discussions. They'd be able to contribute to some of the discussions. They just don't, at the end of the day, get to vote. But that builds the experience, so
Yeah.
then they can say, well, now I am a person with that experience.
Right, okay.
And this was a concern that Ed brought to the table, and so I want to make sure that gets honored, that was something important,
Yeah.
the many conversations that we had leading up to this.
Right. And then you'll see also on page 3, there's reappointment. There's a term limit, which would be 2 consecutive full 3-year terms. Then a person who served, 6 years, who has served 6 years would then have to step off of the board as a voting member for, I think, at least 2 years. For 2 years. That person who served, so they served 6 years, they could be appointed as an ex officio member.
Right.
They don't necessarily want to lose the experience that somebody has and the insight that they offer, but they'd have to be off as a voting member for 2 full years before they can come back on.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of helps eliminate people from staying on there for 20 years.
That's right.
Or at least makes it a little more difficult for them to do that.
Right, yes. I mean, you can bounce off and on, but,
Well, it's also up to the mayor and the board to,
Right, yeah.
People just can't, just,
true, yes.
Almost, there's a few changes to one of the sections, but the mayor's going to post that online.
Doesn't have online, so we'll get a copy.
Oh, that's right. Narcy, you can have this copy when we're done.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, so who would the fifth voting member be according to the new chapter? I know in the old chapter it said you would have, or the village board would have input into who they would be, but I don't see that in this.
That's the ex officio. I think that's what we were just talking about. We have five, we have 5 members.
Right, but I only see stipulations for 4. How does the fifth one play in?
There's actually 6
This is
qualifications.
something-
So there's 5 major qualifications.
2 and 3.
Well, excuse me, it's a 5-person board, and then you see under the qualifications, at least you want to try to have at least one architect, one historian, one licensed real estate
So you
professional.
could duplicate.
Yeah,
Right.
one person can wear more than one hat, as long as you've got 5 people who generally cover those criteria, you're all right.
Right.
One of the, as a person sitting on this and has, you know, it's like a team. You want to get people that have different types of skills. We don't have an architect currently, but we have somebody who's in construction. We need somebody with that kind of technical expertise, to weigh in. And then we have a historian, and we have, it works right now, and that's one of the things you have to think about.
Right. So I guess that was my next question, was the team we currently have with the OHPAC, they fit, but that 5-person board fits this.
We don't hit everything, and we don't have a real estate agent either, but we hit a lot of them.
Okay.
So one of the other things that we do in this updated law is make it, I think, clearer, or more, I'll say more transparent to members of the community that a project is taking place at a location. So currently there's no requirement that a notice be posted on the property, for example, when it's undergoing work that was subject to the historic preservation review. So we do require that under this law, that they post their property, that I think that they've applied, and I know I was just looking at this.
They go through the process anyway, and what the response was like interior, it was invisible to the community.
Right.
There was written communication, but other areas of the country, when I was traveling around, and I saw that they were posting these things next to the building permit. And that way, it educates the community that, there's a process that we should go through, and here's something that we have to talk to people about. And so it's transparent, it works, it helps with communications, it helps with education.
Right.
So we're gonna give it a try.
Yeah, to point you to the specific section, it's 126-14. So as soon as somebody applies, as soon as they apply, they have to post for 10 days the fact that they've applied. And it has to be visible on their property. And then it goes through, there's a public hearing, which means the village has to post a public hearing notice in the newspaper. And then if it's ever approved, then as Nadine mentioned, it would need to be posted next to the building permit. So that way everyone walking by would say, oh yeah, they did go through that review and approval.
So does every application get a public hearing?
Yep.
Well, technically, that's what our meetings are, the public hearings. And we do, we're abiding by, to the best of our ability, the open meeting laws, and that's why I've been sending you the agendas and things like that to post online.
Yeah, those are good. I guess we have that all set up.
We have pretty good people that can put that together.
Yeah.
So I did have a good question from, I think it was Meg, or no, this was in relation to another issue with the village zoning and planning, but I was looking at that, and then also looking, or maybe it was Nadine who mentioned this, the 15 calendar days for a public hearing notice is a little longer than what we otherwise do for public hearings. Usually it's like 5 or 10 days. We used 15, I think that was the draft that we worked off initially. I'm assuming the board is okay with either 5 or 10. Rod, do you?
We used 10 days.
10 days? Right. So I'm assuming the board's okay with a 10-day public hearing notice requirement. That would at least make it consistent among the various hearing notices.
One of the problems that the previous commission had was sometimes people would show up at like the last minute, the day before, with their applications, and we were looking at them as we were sitting around the table. And then there might be a problem or a question, and then there was problems. And so one of the things that commissions all across the country do is they usually give the commissioners at least 2 weeks to if we can get people trained to get their paperwork in, so we can talk to them and visit the site and ask questions. It really solved a whole lot of problems, I think, and it's reasonable. can't expect
Yeah.
people to like look at stuff right then and there, cold.
Yeah, no, that seems reasonable.
So I'll make that tweet then, from 15 to 10.
I guess if there was anybody here that had any problems with it, those are the people that I would like to make sure I have a chance to talk to, or they want to hear or call me or email me or stop by, have a cup of coffee or something like that. If there were concerns, try to just talk about it. I guess the one thing I wanted to leave all of you with before the discussion was over is what we're contemplating doing at the public hearing is not something new for this village. This is what happened in the past. Unfortunately, was an aberration from our village government. We had our historic National Register district was listed in 1980. And we had our certified, one of the other benefits of having a commission is the fact that we would be getting our certified local government back again.
Right.
And we had ours in, before New York City had theirs. Little villages and little governments can be little but mighty, and they really know how to do the right thing. And we were able to do that. And so they saved the court. Those of you that are old timers remember the threat to the courthouse when they wanted to put a road through, wasn't it? The state wanted to demolish that and solve the problem. And that was one of the things that got preservationists in the area alerted to the fact that maybe we need to save this building and figure out the road problem around it. But just imagine what the village would be like without it, in a way. So we participated, even in the appearance of the bridge, the new bridge coming across. That bridge would look differently. When the bridge design came through, the commission said, "Do you think we could, change the lighting and change the railing to be a little bit more historic looking?" And we think that, it didn't change the construction of the bridge, but it certainly changed the appearance. And how many people do you know? My family, I said, please come off the exit when you come to visit me and come off the bridge, and be welcomed into town that way. It's small things like that, but they're big things. So I think that what we're doing is building on the shoulders of people that came before us, and also I have a whole lot of information on the certified local government stuff, which benefits the entire village in terms of grants and things like that. And there's a certain amount of preservation money that is set aside. 10% of the preservation money that the state allots every year in grants only goes to certified local governments. And in New York State, we're only in competition with 70 of them, and they all don't apply. We can keep that stuff going in the pipeline if we're motivated and get our taxpayer dollars back in here, again. But there's other, in this point system, or when the villages apply for grants, there's like a 100-point system. You get 25 points right off the bat for being a CLG, certified local government. So why not? So we had that all those years, and we need to get it back. So, and the only way to get it back is to have a commission. That's the law.
Right.
And so
We really don't have an action.
No action tonight. It's just a conversation among the board. I mean, if anyone has any, questions about how it works or comments or substantive revisions
Before the public hearing. Where is the public hearing here, or is it at? Here. 56. Do you think we're gonna have a lot of people there?
I don't know. I thought that once it was confirmed that, in case there was a change, I'd put the word
Right.
out and see people. I think there will be people who will come.
We should probably
Maybe we should
look into that,
just in case.
right?
Yeah.
Move it over to the other.
I think maybe might be a good idea.
Are there any other public hearings scheduled for that meeting?
No,
I think you might get a strong turnout.
might get a decent crowd.
We'll probably have supporters.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Probably fewer people than the last time we revisited this.
Probably.
yes,
Better move.
Hopefully, yes. All right, so you got anything to say on that, Ed, since it's kind of your baby?
no. So Nate just
there's no real action,
earlier, his comments that we're in response to what Nadine sent to us. I think we're in a pretty good place, right?
I think we are.
Right.
I think we are. We're moving, you know, I keep reiterating, we have the longest contiguous historic district in New York State. There are 285 buildings in the historic district. And what happens when a historic district would lose their commission or something like that? It starts to disappear slowly. It's a subtle thing. And it's a good thing. And right now, I'm working on the GRI thing, and one of the things we have going right now is historic preservation. And Elaine Jardine came to one of the our meetings recently and gave a document that's hot off the presses from New York State in September 2008, just a few months ago. And it's all about the economic pluses of historic preservation. The jobs, the tax base, and the business and the real estate. And so we're in line to work in this direction. I don't know right now what else we've got going for us, but I think if we build on this foundation, other good things can happen too. So, go ahead.
I think the one question I would have is, given the way that the OHPAC is working right now with the administrative certificates, if we were to approve the law with a preservation planner but not be able to fill that position for some time, could we make that work in the way that you're doing it now with code enforcement laws?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've realized that there are things that don't need to come in front of, like in-kind repairs and things like that. And we want to help people, keep moving. We've got people in the driveway. They're ready. You guys are ready to start. They had a job that was canceled. Yes. And so what I've been doing with the new code enforcement officer is he'll bounce something to me as the chair, and then I look at it and I'll say, oh, this is fine. This doesn't have to go in front of the whole committee, and I bounce it back to him, and then he gives it works. It's efficient, it's working. And it's a little different than what we did before. Like everything had to come in front of a committee. We only meet once a month and sometimes twice, and that was a problem for people. So what happens is if something comes in between meetings and it's easy to do, we can make a real quick turnaround. So that's working, and we've been working, like what I said, I've been working really well with the code enforcement officer. He's been really good, with that. So we figured out how to make this work.
Good.
So that was a suggestion that I think I made to me.
So, but Nate, you think we're okay proceeding that way? If we're not able to do that, to fill that position?
If we don't have a historic preservation planner, then I guess I would question whether we can follow that exact procedure. The way I thought you had mentioned in the email was that you were having those conversations, but...
Well, I was thinking,
That's what it seemed like,
I guess it can stay informal. I mean, it's sort of like an administrative certificate of appropriateness. Well, the thing that we give out is these certificates of appropriateness, which open the door for people to get the building permits. So what we were saying is to kind of keep things moving, that they don't have to come in front of the whole committee. It's called an administrative certificate of appropriateness that would be given by either the chair or the preservation planner, which is a professional person with a degree in that, which again is a higher standard, and great to have.
But I guess the downside to that is, this is only going to become an issue if there's a denial where someone applies for an administrative certificate, is denied, goes through the whole process, and is then denied, and then might raise a...
And then say I should have been entitled to an administrative certificate.
Right, yes, exactly.
Or someone who says they were denied, but then has to go through the whole process and says, I should have been given an administrative certificate. You shouldn't give these out to anybody. I think the way the law is written right now, it says that a historic preservation planner is somebody who's qualified under the federal regulations to provide this, and then in consultation with the chair, they would determine whether an administrative certificate is appropriate. I think that's the key. We need somebody with the credentials to provide that administrative review. Right now, our law doesn't necessarily have that in place right now anyway.
But it's only ever going to be in the negative that this would be an issue, right?
someone who maybe is interested in having a historic preservation planner weigh in and says you're doing it wrong by not having a historic preservation planner, regardless of whether they give approval or not, might take it how it's being implemented. I mean, so if there is no historic preservation planner or a similarly qualified person, and if the law actually says we don't need to hire somebody to do this, we can, and by hire I mean as an employee, we can contract with a local consulting firm to give that, review and advice as to whether it's administrative or not. But without, I think, that credential person there, then everything would, I think, need to go to the full board.
Okay. But I still think it's a if we're ever able to do that properly according to the law, I think it's worth having it in there because it can make things.
Well, I was saying before, it sets the bar high, like they do for the qualifications of the commission members. But there are still things that really don't need to come in front of the board, and which are spelled out in the law. It's like not everything that and paint colors, we don't tell people how to paint their houses.
I can say the current law we have on the books, and the OHPAC law, does have in it a provision very similar to, I'll say, the administrative certificate of approval that the new law has, only it doesn't require someone with the
qualifications. The CFR 36 qualifications.
Okay. So does anybody else on the board have any questions about the law? Okay. I'm looking to change it to 56 Main Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, OPD cleaner, this is still out here. Right here.
Yeah. I'm under the understanding that without changing her job title, that it probably can't be done. Here's my concern with changing the job title is, let's just say 2 months from now or a year from now or whatever, somebody says, okay, we're gonna go back, we're a new board, we're gonna go back to the way it was with the cleaners, and then Uda's in the position where it's, say she cleans 4 hours a week, she works 40 hours a week, so there's 10% that's cleaning, and they end up making her a 36-hour-a-week employee part-time or what. That's my concern if it went back that way.
That'd be my concern too.
So that, I guess at this point, I don't want to put her out at risk for that, so I'll explain it to her, and I guess for now, we'll keep it the way it is unless there's...
So we'll take that off the agenda.
Some other way around it. It doesn't.
But we can still keep talking to civil service or something, I don't know.
Right.
So, okay.
That's it. I do have another, I thought Nate was sending an email to get it on the agenda, but we're supposed to have an executive session for a...
I did talk with the mayor about that.
Okay.
So
we'll have that later.
Okay.
Just in case these 4 people don't want to stay around.
Yep. Very good. I just didn't see it on there, so I'll make sure.
All right, next item is full-time code officer. Jeff did a little breakdown, right?
I guess Cindy did it at the request of
I'm just giving you credit.
Trustee Fuller.
So this is what it would cost, potentially, to take him to full-time, right? If he signed up for everything.
Right.
It says, yes, it'd be $1,300 short, technically.
So our risk is 19 and beyond, is what you're telling me.
Right.
It's what? I'm sorry.
Our risk is 2019. He's got budget for this.
I mean, I can cover it right now.
That's the only thing I see wrong with this plan is how do we fund it going forward?
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, that's my question mark.
Yeah,
Right.
which is why I come back to, 2 part-time people instead of 1 full-time person.
Well, you're looking, just so, it's on record and everything, the increase in salary is only about $10,000.
Yeah.
But you bump in about $40,000 in benefits,
Right.
potentially.
With health insurance.
With health insurance and all. I mean, Chuck says he won't do that, but
Right.
the next family.
Exactly.
Or if his wife loses.
Right, something
Right.
changes, right?
Right.
Never know what can change with people.
So we subtracted Itchy and brought him in part-time.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the,
Itchy was making 46 plus benefits.
okay.
Right.
So he was 60, 70,
Right.
Right.
in that range too. Yeah. Yeah.
So would
Yeah,
you-
Retirement.
Would you have been at risk next year for Itchy?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Had nothing changed yet, possibly.
Right, yeah.
Well, except that you would have budgeted probably that full amount
Right.
for that
Right, we would have
position.
been able to
Right.
save that.
And always the question to ask, the way it's written is like there's a 39,000 surplus currently in the budget. I'm assuming that's a reference to Jeff's budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that really a surplus, or is that money he's planning on using for a bunch of other things?
No.
I think that money is because people that we assume would take health insurance didn't take it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Rusty?
So it's the continuing conflicts that we always have. We probably need more code.
Right.
Every time we add employees and benefits in our tight little budget, and once again, I bring this up, we're gonna have some money, things coming up with the police. I don't have an answer to this.
I don't either. I mean, we can fund it this year, but next year, I don't know.
So what happens if we were to approve this year, and next year there's no budget for it? Then we've gotten a year's worth of service out of Chuck, but
That's kind of where I'm going, but
Yeah.
you know, it's the,
can we
But
cut
also-
it back then or not?
And once he becomes a full-time employee,
Yeah,
he
he's
would
subject to civil service
he would be
protection.
subject to civil service, and he would also
Right.
be within the union at this point. We're currently exploring the possibility of having him not in the union, but
Yeah.
unions typically don't like to give up
That's right.
members like that.
and respectfully to the union, I mean, that's
Yeah,
your
that's-
risk. That's your
It
risk.
is, right.
Well,
It's not really the budget, I mean, it is the budget, but it's more that.
But it's the long term.
Combination of civil service and the union are gonna keep you
I
full-time.
mean, if you appointed him as full-time and the union wasn't an issue, I believe code enforcement's typically an annual appointment anyway. But you could always, if you have to cut back because of money, basically, you can make a position part-time.
We could generate a case for it probably. if you had to.
Yeah, I think that we could, especially where, it's a short-term issue. I'm just thinking, if you're gonna tell somebody, hey, we'll make you full-time for 8 more months, until the next budget goes, that might not be the best thing for him to plan like that.
Right.
I don't want to tell Jeff how to run his department because on this front, you've been doing a good job.
You're always trying to find ways to cut, but
Yeah, exactly.
I met him, he's doing a good job. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know what you think.
Oh, I think he's doing an excellent
Yeah, I don't hear nothing bad about
And I,
it.
somebody said there's gonna be more code, or somebody said that, but I mean,
Well, we got that $10 million grant coming in, a lot
Things are only going to get busier on that front.
of construction's gonna happen in the village.
I just think that if there's some way to find somebody who's part-time, that makes the whole issue go away. It gets you into another body. No, you're not gonna have the consistency, but if the person would consult with, are there levels of code enforcement? Could you make one a code enforcement officer one and the other a
Right, like report to the other guy, I suppose?
code enforcement officer?
is he lobbying for full-time?
He would take full time.
Yeah, you would.
We did have a hard time finding him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
I can delegate what each of them does. I could have like Chuck do the major construction stuff, the
Yeah, the person do fire
OEPC stuff.
inspections or whatever, yeah.
The other guy do grass, garbage,
Yeah.
and local codes.
Right.
Yeah.
And like
The question is, could we,
I don't need an answer tonight.
Yeah.
the question is, can we find another
We're gonna
guy?
need, right.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Should we advertise for another
The
guy?
next person we find, we're probably gonna have to send to school.
Right.
So, it's not like we'd be paying the same price as I was paying Chuck.
Yeah.
Because we would be a novice at best.
Right.
So, so.
But at least, you know, if you're not doing local code enforcement,
Right.
grass and garbage and things like that, it's a little easier to,
Yeah.
you know, do.
Right, and then working with Chuck, I mean, you could,
Plus that would build a,
you could work
like, so
into
say
it.
we get a younger, more inexperienced guy, we could build him up and work
You got
it.
succession.
Yeah. Rusty?
Well, you're not gonna like this very much.
I don't like anything now.
A thought, the DRI activity isn't going to be for a while yet.
Correct.
Right, the actual building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so therefore,
It's
all
about a year away.
We're talking like
so the code
2020.
stuff won't be
Yeah, I mean, you don't pay the benefit
coming
payment,
right
but
up.
you increase the salary to.
One of our possibilities, I don't like any of these answers, one of our possibilities is to not do this yet, and for us to look next spring at where we are with money and where we are with budget, and decide whether or not we can,
Right.
who we can afford, what we can afford. As much as we like to have him do more now and do it now, maybe that's the way we have to go, is to hold off a little longer.
You can do that.
It's not
Like you
first
said, you're not
choice,
looking
but-
for an answer right
Right,
now.
and then, I mean, I've tried not to push this whole deal. I mean, I've pushed the fact that I would prefer one full-time guy, but, I mean, I know how things are. I mean, my department's down to 6 people, so,
Right.
I mean, I understand what's going on. And we don't need an answer now. And maybe that's fine.
It's just a thought, I don't know.
I mean, you guys ultimately have to make the decision, not me, so. So when somebody calls me and says, hey, get this guy to come to my house, I said, I'll give you a bunch of phone numbers.
Tell them more. But you're right. I mean, that's absolutely true.
Right.
How many hours a week does he work now?
Chuck works 19 and a half.
So what's the cutoff for the benefits? 32, 36?
19 and a half.
Probably
And he's probably working
Well,
considerably,
you don't get
probably working considerably more.
you don't get any benefits until you're working 40 hours,
Right.
so.
But civil service gets angry if you work over
Yeah,
19 and a half.
right, that's
He
exactly
he
right.
would, yeah, once he gets beyond that, he would be considered not a part-timer, and that